Greetings, Dr. Dominique Reese here, owner of Reese Financial Services, where I'm the Chief Financial Consultant and Strategist. And today is the Ask Q&A for how to start your financial coaching practice. And I'm very excited to go over a few questions that have been submitted. If you have a question about starting your own financial coaching practice, whatever that question might be, this is a safe space and the perfect time to get some support and answers for your question. So feel free to type them in the chat. I have some questions that have been submitted that I'm going to review, and it'll just be fairly easy. Stop in, listen to a few of the answers and responses. If you have a question to offer, please feel free to do so. If not, and you're catching the replay, submit your questions anyway. You can email me. I'll put my email in the chat. That way, if you have more questions, I can reach out to you. So feel free to shoot me an email. I just put that in the chat, and we'll get started. So first question, why should I start a financial coaching business now? Well, I think now is the best time to start a financial coaching practice. One, we as financial coaches have a very unique skill set that can influence and impact the clients who need it most, which we know right now, given the state of the economy, there are a lot of people hurting financially, and there are a lot of people who are doing well. And so you cannot discount the people who are doing well, but don't know you. They don't know that you exist. They don't know that you have a skill set that can support them in helping them to get to their financial goals, and that you're affordable. You have to remember that our industry, meaning the financial services industry, has typically focused on marketing financial advisors and financial planners. And we know as practitioners that the best time to work with the financial planner or financial advisor is when you have assets to be managed, to plan for. But what if you don't have those assets? Then your client needs someone like us, a financial educator, a financial counselor, a financial coach, with whom they can work with to begin to build assets. And then from building assets, you can work with them into growing their assets. So keeping that in mind, you have to remember, again, the landscape of the economy is what's driving demand for us. The clients that we're going to show up and serve aren't the millionaires. We can work with millionaires, don't get it twisted. However, we're able to work with the masses. We're able to work with the people who don't have $250,000 in investable assets. The clients who have low to moderate income, who have tons of debt, little to no savings, need to improve their credit. Those are our ideal clients because they're building assets. And with your coaching skill set and your financial knowledge, you're perfectly positioned to work with that market. Now, of course, you could go more niche and specific from there, as you should. But that's why you should start a financial coaching practice, because you have everything you need. You just have to put yourself out there so that the clients you're meant to serve can find you. But the need is there. And I believe that in this recovery phase, which some may say we're entering a recovery, others may feel we have more of a bottom to go through before we hit the recovery point. But that's coming. Things move in cycles. The economy moves in cycles. So if you look at where we were, you look at where we are, you might be able to figure out where we're headed. And because of that, you want to position yourself to be in business for yourself so you can take a part of that market and begin to work with these clients who are going to be raising their hands to work with us. And at that point, you don't want to have to get ready. You want to be ready. So that's why you should start a financial coaching business now. Like there's no better time than now, because of all of the factors that really support us being in business for ourselves and reaching the markets that need us the most. So that's That's the answer to that question. Now, because you're ready, you have the skill set, you have the knowledge, you're probably already doing this work. Again, most financial coaches are already employed through an agency, a nonprofit, possibly through the military, working with active duty, or maybe on a college campus, working with students around their finances or college wellness center. Um, those are the typical places we show up with our credentials, knowledge, and skill set. So again, you're doing the work already. It's just time to step out on faith and do it for yourself. Have a stream of income from this exact same skill set that you control. And then again, you get to choose the ideal client that you're working with, which may be very different than the client you're working with in your 9 to 5. And that's the beauty of it all. You get to work with who you want to work with and who you feel can benefit most from the deployment of your skills. What should my business focus on? Well, that's a great question because we all don't do the same things. Status quo would have you to believe that one financial coach is the same as another financial coach is the same as another. But we know better than that. We do not all do the same things, even if we focus on the same areas. So this is where you really have to set your lifestyle goals. And this is why I say we build a financial practice according to 3 different types of goals. Hey, Miss Educated, thank you for joining. Um, we build the practice based on our personal goals, our profit goals, and our professional goals. So when you think about where you want to be, right? If you want to be a financial coach with credentials and you may want to get, higher educational credentials or maybe get a CFP, like you've got a plan of action for where you see yourself in your career, which is going to impact how you set up your business and really how you get started. It doesn't have to be set in stone in the beginning because this is a journey. You don't necessarily know that though in the beginning. You may feel like what you're doing right now is what you're going to be doing the entire life of your practice, and that's not the case. You're going to grow, you're going to elevate, you're going to learn what you like to do, what you don't like to do. So when you think about starting, and where you should focus, start with where you are. Start with what you're already doing because that's what you're already being paid for. That's an affirmation to self that at the very minimum, I could do exactly what I'm doing right here in this job, just do it for myself. That's the easiest way to get started. So look at your current client base. Who are you currently working with? Who are you currently serving? And then the easier question becomes, do you want to continue to serve that market? If so, great. If not, then who is your ideal client? Who is the market that you would like to serve? From there, think about the curriculum. Think about how you're serving your client. What tools are you using? What frameworks are you using? Do you find yourself going in and out of coaching and counseling? I know for me, in being trained as a coach, it was difficult at times to shift out of the advisor and counselor role because I had been a financial advisor. That's a different skill set that we bring to bear than we do when we're coaching. Coaching, we have to be a lot more contained and controlled. It's not about us. We're not giving advice. We're not in an advisory role. So there's some mindfulness to be had. And then coaching, you stay in your lane. You lead the client. You're not giving answers to every question. You're helping the client figure out the answer on their own. Well, think about what you're currently doing. Do you tend to stay in a coaching role, in a counselor role, in an advisor mode? Do you blend them? Think about your current style and if that's something you want to continue. I like to say stop, start, change, or continue. And if you want to switch it up in your practice. I tend to blend. So my style is I bring coaching, counseling, and education. I mix in some planning depending upon who's sitting across from me. And that's my style. So I blend education, coaching, and counseling and planning and bring all of those to bear, wearing different hats at different times based upon the client I'm serving. I see we have a question, which is great. Thank you so much. Did you receive coaching on how to coach before you started? Great question. And my answer was no. I didn't know that I was coaching when I was coaching. I had been an advisor. I got laid off. I started my own little shop doing money management counseling, and I went off to the races. It wasn't until 2016 that I started a job, and the job required me to get my AFC, which is the Accredited Financial Counselor designation offered through the AFCPE, and my FFC, my financial fitness coach designation. It wasn't until I had to get those designations that I knew what I had been doing all the years previous was coaching. So I studied in the books. I saw like, oh, I was doing that, but that's called paraphrasing or summarizing or reframing. So now I had the techniques and I knew what they were called, but I had been delivering them all along. So no, I didn't receive formal education around coaching, but I eventually did in my journey. So again, remember this is a journey, and I didn't start, with the techniques. I just knew the skill set I had. I didn't know that I was doing those things, but I was. So that's a good way for you to remember you don't have to always get formal education to do what you're doing. If you're doing and you're practicing, you are a practitioner helping people with their money and you're good at it. Because listen, if you're not good at what you do, then you need to go get better before you try to open up a business. Let's be very clear. But if you are good at what you do, you're qualified, you're professional, and you're educated, you don't necessarily have to have the designations and you don't necessarily need any more education. You can really test this out with where you are so that you knew how to organize and deliver your services to each client. Great follow-up question. There was no training for that. The training that I got for my sales skills was actually from being a financial advisor. I believe I got the best training on the street, which was from Merrill Lynch. It taught me how to sell. It taught me how to run a practice. And then I had the mentorship of my senior partner. But that's literally on the job training. So if you find you're not good at marketing, you're not good at onboarding, you're not good at sales, you're not good at operations, those are business building skill sets. So it has nothing to do with your coaching at that point. It has everything to do with being an entrepreneur. And again, that's why how to start your financial coaching practice training is so valuable, because I'm not teaching you how to be a coach. You know how to be a coach. That training that we're going to start on April 3rd is all about how to set your business up. How do you start your financial coaching practice? You've got the coaching. Let me help you get the business side set up. And so that's the stuff that I had to learn on my own. There was no training for it. And then the second question we have, how do you find your clients? Great question. And what rate do you charge? Have you increased your rate over the 10 years in business? Great questions. First one, how do you find your clients? Which I had on my list as a question that came in. So we're in synergy there. I love this question because clients are everywhere. And I know you've heard that before and you're like, yeah, but how do I get them to work with me? First things first, you are not meant to serve everybody. And I know that's difficult. You think you can serve everybody because everybody needs what we have, but you're not meant to deploy that to everyone. You're meant to choose in the beginning who your ideal client is going to be, because you need to focus on one thing and knock it out the park. So that's where we go wrong in our businesses, when we try to start off doing everything. And you're going to do it because it's natural. It's like the entrepreneurial initiation, managing way too much than you need to. But if you're wise and you learn quickly, you will see, okay, I'm not meant to work with everybody. Figure out who you want to work with. And once you know, is it going to be Retirees? Is it going to be young people, millennials? Is it going to be college students? Is it going to be families with multiple children, single parents, women who've been divorced or widowed, single fathers, which is a growing population, young investors, homeowners, or people who are in the home buying process, veterans, low income, unemployed, youth 14 to 24, reentry, that would be the population coming out of prison. They're restarting, they're rebuilding. Foster youth who are being emancipated out of the system. Now they're going to be, taking care of themselves and managing their own lives. You can work with leaders, executive leaders. You might think, well, why would they need a financial coach? I'll tell you in a second. You choose the market. You choose the client that you want to serve first. And once you know who that is going to be, now we can put effort, money, resources into finding them, into getting in front of them. But that first part is so key. I cannot implore you to begin to shift your thinking around who you're supposed to serve. You are not meant to serve everybody who needs a budget. You are not meant to serve everyone who can benefit from a debt reduction strategy. That's not the way we build a business. We build these practices by going very focused initially. And that's the tough part, because you start here, but you've got to get here. And once you've identified that one group, then we say, okay, where are they? How do we get in front of them? And now everything we do is through a targeted lens. We're not out here saying, okay, well, where are they? How do we find them? How do we get in front of them? This is a lot of people to try to get in front of. Boil that down to that one group. So the next thing, how do you find them? Well, knowing your market. This is where you have got to research. This stuff is not fly by the night. It's an investment. That's why entrepreneurs make a lot of money when they pop off because they've been investing everything necessary to get the results. So you've got to research. You've got to figure out where your people are. So let's take youth, for example. You want to educate youth about money. Well, there's youth all over the place, right? So what kind of youth are we talking about? Youth is technically 14 to 24. Okay, well, I want to work with high schoolers. Okay, great. High schoolers. So now we've got focus. We're going to work with high schoolers. Where do you find high schoolers? Well, one, in school, right? And then two, in places where they like to hang out. Okay, but are they going to be the ones who are paying for your service? Now, that's where a lot of us get stuck. We don't know. Like, no, probably their parents, right? Right. And if their parents are paying, why would they come pay for them? What's the value of hiring a financial coach to work with your high schooler? Well, a parent might feel like, okay, to help my kid learn about money, but is that really a value add? Maybe not. The better route to find this client is to go to the organizations that serve this client. So who serves high school students? Now you've got a much broader client base to choose from, right? Schools serve high schoolers. Colleges serve high schoolers because they're trying to recruit them for the next phase of life. Nonprofits serve high school students, right? Fashion, the whole industry of fashion serves high school students. There's music, the music entertainment industry, they serve high school students. So why is that important? Because it's important that you begin to think outside of the box around who your client is. You might want to work with an entertainment group that works with high school students, and the entertainment company is going to become your client. They're the ones with the budget. They're the ones who are going to pay you to come in and work with the high school students that they serve. The same idea with the schools. You want to get your curriculum into the school. Okay, well, target the school districts. Go to where there are organizations that are already serving the client you want to pay for or that you want to work with. And that organization is going to pay you to do that. And this is the key when working with populations that you think can't afford your services. Just remember, people pay for what they value, and even poor people pay for things. So there's always someone willing to pay for what you're offering. You just have to find the money. And in these situations, when we have populations that are unemployed, underemployed, or low income, and they very well may not be able to afford a rate of 175 a session, or 375 a session, or 500 a session. However, the organizations that work with them can, and that's where you go to find your client. How do you charge? Great question. So, in the training, How to Start Your Financial Coaching Practice, we talk about the two most profitable ways to get started in getting paid. It's going to be by value and by figure. And so we are going to outline what that means. What does it mean to charge by value? Well, that's why we become entrepreneurs. We don't become entrepreneurs to create another job for ourselves. So notice I did not say hourly rates, right? We're not exchanging our time for hourly rates. Those days are W-2 days, they're gone. As entrepreneurs, we charge based on value. If I do this for you, if I help you transform this area of your life or your financial life, it's going to create something for you. That something gives that person benefit. Your value is in their benefit. So you've got to be able to charge according to what that person is now in a position to be able to do as a result of working with you. That is called value. And there's typically three types of value. There is business value, financial value, and lifetime value. So, in working with you, you're delivering all three of those. You're helping somebody change their numbers, you're helping somebody increase their reach, and you're helping somebody change their life. Those are the three ways in which our work translates into value. And then you've got to put a number on that. We calculate that in the training. I give you tools to help you calculate at the very least what would an hourly rate look like based on the number of hours you have to work in a year as an entrepreneur. So we help you with that as well. And this is like very practical. You might think, why would I need to know that? Well, because as an entrepreneur, you control your time. So you've got to realize how many working hours there are in a year. And of those hours, how many are you going to be in front of a client? How much of that time is going to be spent on vacation? How much of that time is going to be spent for sick days or making room for sick days? Because again, you work for yourself. But every day doesn't mean that you're working with the client. You've got to build in time to actually work on your business versus in your business. So when we start this process of building a practice, you first need to know, well, how much time do I actually have to be in front of a client? Will you work weekends? If not, you got to subtract those hours out. Technically, I only work with clients 3 days a week. Now, I didn't start off that way, but I knew based on building my business according to my profit goals, my personal goals, and my professional goals, I don't want to work on Mondays. I hate Mondays. You forget stuff on Mondays. People cancel on Mondays. Mondays don't always go well. I don't want to work on a Monday. So I had to subtract that time out of my billable hours when working with a client, which then told me for the year, okay, this is how many hours in an entire year I can be in front of a client. All the rest of the time is going to be divvied up between research and development, working on my business, preparing my content. Like, you've got things to do in the business. We haven't even talked about being a human being and living a life and taking care of your family. I have a 6-year-old son. So there's time that I've got to really get my time management in order up here before I can see myself practicing through the business. So that time management piece, knowing how many billable hours you can have, is going to impact how you charge, what your rates are going to be. And again, because we're not charging based on hourly rates, we're charging based on value. You then need to calculate that. We go through those detailed steps in the training. Have you increased your rate over the 10 years in business? I most certainly have. I have tested my rates over and over. Every year, I test something new. The entrepreneurial journey is an iterative process. You will do something, you will put it out to the market, which is the testing. The market is going to tell you if they want it or not. And based upon what the market is telling you, which is essentially, is somebody going to buy this? And if somebody buys it enough times, now you know you're on to something. But if you're struggling to get one sale, what is it? Could it be the pricing? Sure. But could it be the marketing? Absolutely. Could you have the right offer, but in front of the wrong people? That could happen. You could have the wrong offer in front of the right people. So now you need to go back to your offer. There are a lot of factors to consider, but it's in a process, everything in divine order when creating your financial coaching practice. So I hope I answered your question by showing you they're all related. And if you're not doing one, you're probably not going to do the next piece as effectively or efficiently. Or you're probably going to have to go back once you realize it didn't work out the first way you did it, because you didn't first calculate how many hours you had to work for the entire year. So you want to be methodical so you don't have to do a lot of the back and forth, but you will test your pricing. I've down to 2020. I started the year testing a product at 500 or a service at $500. Once I sold 5 of them for $500, which I did, I doubled the price to 1,000. I got somebody to buy at 1,000. So I said, okay, I'm gonna double it to 2,000. I got somebody to pay me $2,000 for my signature program. And that's when I knew, okay, 2,000 it is. I can't work for anything less than that. Hey, Dr. Ann, thank you so much for tuning in. So, yes, you most certainly will increase your rates, decrease your rates, try a new offering. You have permission to do that when you're running a practice, but you kind of have to. It will be required if you want to test new ideas, see if this is going to be a good product or a service. The only way you're going to get that feedback is if you put it out there. And once you see people are buying, it's okay. Test it again. Increase the price, because now we're talking value. If you are able to sell it once, you can sell it again. And you've got to have the confidence to do that. But again, everything in divine order. This is the beginning of your journey. So, yes, you will test your pricing. Let's see. How to organize and deliver. Now, I want to go back to the question that Miss Educated asked earlier with respect to how to organize and deliver your services. Once you get a client, it's a different experience now. You have to onboard that client. And that is a process. This is where your systems and your processes become important in your business. Now, initially, you might think, oh, yeah, I got that, duh, right? I got to have an intake form at the very least. Yes, you will need an intake form of some kind. But once the client has completed the intake form and they're ready to get started, will you have signed agreements in place, or is it just an invoice? Will you send assessments, or will it be online that they complete an assessment? Once you get that information back, do you do something with it, or do you just start coaching? I tend to generate a report after clients give me their assessment. I'll generate a report that I give back to them. So now they have a takeaway. There was something of value that they got right away. And if didn't work with me ever again, they at least have their personal financial report as an indication of our work together. And again, that was at the beginning of the relationship. Um, if you're doing any tracking with your client, what does that look like? How often do you do that? So these are the processes. So again, she brought up a great point because you do want to be organized when you're delivering your services and following up and managing your client relationship. But you've got to figure out what that's going to look like. There's no playbook for this. Ideally, I'll be creating a playbook, which you could purchase later, and it'll be the training in the book, and we'll talk about those things. But in the beginning, it's just you figuring out what organization looks like. What are the steps that it'll take for you to get the client and then get the client ready to work with you? And you should be documenting all of that along the way, testing it out, seeing what stays, what goes every time you enroll a client. Did you do the same thing you did last time? Did you switch it up a bit? Did one thing work better than another thing? That is your time to test your processes so that by the time you're at your 50th consultation, it's like nothing for you, right? Because you've got a system that you've been perfecting over time. And that's okay. You've got to give yourself permission to test your processes so you'll know what process you'll actually land on, eventually. But in the beginning, it's trial and error. Any other questions? Feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to switch over to the question that were submitted in advance for today. So let me just pull that back up and we'll have the other questions to answer. Okay. All right. So the other questions that came in. How do I put myself out there when there are other coaches doing what I do? Great question. I know the idea of competition can scare some people off. So we should talk about this. For our industry, you hear a lot, oh, well, people can get that for free. Yes, they can. People can get a lot of things for free. And again, people pay for what they value. So you have to ask yourself, well, you will ask yourself, and you've got to do some self-work on self so that you are constantly and consistently improving your mindset around what you're worth. There's a lot of influences that will have us think we have to decrease and depress our pricing so that the people we want to work with can afford us. That is backwards thinking. That is not how we set up our businesses. That's a lack mentality, and that ain't going to work. You will never get paid what you're worth, and you'll never make a good living with that mindset. So you've got to now shift from understanding what you're worth and not based on an hourly rate, but based on value. And then again, figuring out, okay, based on the clients I do want to work with and the offers that I have, I can be competitive in this market. I can create an offer that people will pay for because they value it. And that is the thinking, that is the mentality. So off the bat, I'd say that, you've got to be able to understand, yes, people can get what we do, can get access to what we do for free through a nonprofit, probably like the one you're working for, right? It's available. But we also know what free looks like. So when you set up your practice and your business, you're not going to be doing the same things, the exact same things you're doing in your job. And even if you are, the beauty is you've already got that system down. So now that you're charging for it, you're not charging because you're doing something drastically unique. If anything, you're charging because of the value you're going to add to that person now that you're outside of the walls of the 9 to 5. You will bring a different energy, a different spin on the curriculum, how you implement the services and strategies and tools that you offer. That's going to be different because again, our jobs tend to confine us. So there's a certain way you got to show up at the 9 to 5. You don't have to do that in your practice, in your business. You get to show up as according to the vision that you have. So ultimately, when you are ready to charge and you're feeling like, okay, well, they could just go around the corner for this, you're not charging to compete with them. You're charging because this is the value I bring. When you work with me, this is what you're going to be able to do. Now, yes, if you holler at me in the nonprofit, I'll do this for you for free. But if you hollering at me outside of the nonprofit, that's interesting too. And then two, there's a fee for that. I went to school, I got tested, I get trainings that I stay up on, I attend conferences, I'm furthering my education. Every time I work with the client, I get deeper experience. That's what people are paying for. They're paying for the things that they are not going to go out and do to be able to do this on their own. So there's a premium. When you don't want to hang your TV up yourself, what do? You call somebody and then they come and they hang it up for you. You could have done that, but you didn't. So now you have to pay someone who does it all the time, who went to school to do it, to come and do it for you. And it's no different with our skill set. It is no different. Everyone in that needs our help is not going to go check out a personal finance book. They might, but then they have to read it. And everybody's just so busy. So people pay us because they want the accelerated version of the solution. They don't want to have to go to school. They don't want to have to go sit through a training. They don't want to have to go get quizzed and take an exam. So they pay us, the professionals who's been there, done that, studied it, tried it on other people already, worked with clients already. That's why we charge. That's why we're different. And that starts in a mindset for us, and then to develop a framework around what that's worth, right? Now we can attach a number to it, because if I'm going to help you do this, I need to get a piece of that. That's value. I saw a question come up. Do I use post-service surveys? Yes, I do. And the best time to get a survey is before the service has ended. It is tough to get a survey completed. So you want to be sure that you get that survey in front of your client before your engagement with the client ends. Even if you have one more session left, it's okay. Put the survey out in front of them. That way you have time to even remind them in the session. And ideally, it'll be completed by then, because again, once that last session comes and you're not sure that you're going to have the client renew their program, now you're hitting them up with a survey. They're like, I ain't got time. People don't fill out surveys. So it's best to use your surveys before the client has ended the engagement or the service. That way you're sure to get some feedback. Let's see. Cincha Kids said like what, but I'm not sure what he or she was referring to. Hopefully I answered their question in more depth. So yes, I do use post-service surveys, and there's plenty of systems out there to help you, the Survey Monkeys. I really like Google. Google allows you to create forms. You can create the forms, customize the questions, and then the data can live inside of an Excel spreadsheet. The equivalent would be a Google sheet. So I like to use Google for my surveys, and I can embed them in different places on the website or within my teaching platform. I use Teachable for my courses and trainings. So I can take a form from Google and embed it right there in the platform, in the modules. But yeah, SurveyMonkey, Typeform, that's another one. Several different survey services, but I do use surveys. Okay, we had another question come in. What steps should I take to make the transition while I have my 9 to 5? Very good question. Starting a business is a journey, and you very well may not start making money that can sustain your lifestyle for a while. I'm not going to put a number on it because everyone's journey is different. However, you have to plan for that. You have to accommodate that. If you're coming from a 9 to 5, keep that 9 to 5, especially if your financial foundation is not where it needs to be. You need to have the adequate savings. You need to be sure that you can sustain yourself for at least 6 months in your business, so that you can still maintain the lifestyle that you're leading while building the business. If I could do it all over again, I wish I would have kept my business going when I did get a 9 to 5. The 9 to 5s that I had at the time, or whatever gigs I picked up, I couldn't run my business and have the job. I got to the point where that became a requirement. Any job I would take had to allow me to keep my business. If it was a conflict of interest, then I've got to find a different job. So part of that transition is getting very clear about where you are financially and what you'll need to sustain you. However, I'm a woman of faith. God is all up and through my business. So there's also a piece to this that you have to trust. And if you have a vision and you're very clear about your purpose being tied to that vision, then be strategic, prepare yourself as much as you can financially, and don't let those numbers be the reason why you're not taking the actions you should be taking in building the business. Don't let your financial situation be the excuse or reason why you can't leave the job just yet. God is my higher power. So if it's your time to leave and you're not exactly where you want to be, it's going to happen. So be obedient to your callings. But at the same time, if you know this is the journey you want to embark upon, begin to get things in order. It's no different than what you're telling your clients, right? Like, we have to be stewards, and we have to also practice what we're preaching. We're out here helping people with their money, so it's important that we either hire a financial coach or someone to help us with our money, because we're busy too. I have to always remind people, just because I'm a financial expert doesn't mean that um, everything's always in order, because I'm busy. I'm human. So I might need to hire somebody to work with me, because I can't do everything all the time. So recognize where you are and what makes sense in terms of the transition, but treat it like you're a client counseling or coaching yourself on your transition. You know where you stand. You know what would make you more comfortable to walk away from that 9 to 5. If you're not at that number, that's okay. Again, we don't want to let it be a deterrent from the transition. But you do want to work towards your goals. So get them savings in that account. Make sure that you can transition and still pay yourself at minimum enough to cover your expenses for the next 6 months. I'm a single parent. I have a village that supports me. So, my story is a bit different because I got laid off, and it was by being laid off that I started my practice. I didn't always have a lot of money put away, but I would take on part-time gigs too. I was open to that. I was open to everything except for going back full-time. Like, I just didn't want to do that. That's always going to be there. You can always go back to a full-time gig. So that was like, all right, I know if it really just doesn't work out, I can go get a job. But if I can't figure this out with working part-time or, picking up some different kind of work, then I'm not cut out for it. Because as entrepreneurs, you've got to be resourceful. You've got to be creative. But again, having a plan of transitioning, having an idea of what your practice is going to look like, you've got to start creating time for that stuff now. That's another reason why this training becomes so important, because you're spending 8 weeks focused on imagining what your practice is going to look like. But what you're really doing is subconsciously training yourself to dedicate an X amount of time every week to working on your business. That's the beginning of entrepreneurship. time. Where your energy goes, attention flows. Where your attention goes, energy flows. So if you're not giving any time to thinking about your practice, researching, starting a practice, thinking about the clients you want to serve, the offers you want to create, if you're not already in the practice of setting aside time to do that, then what do you think is going to happen when you make the transition? You're not going to manage your time well. So this training is a subconscious training in itself to begin to shift your mindset around being an entrepreneur. Again, you've got the coaching, you've got the skill set, you've got the knowledge. I don't need to tell you how to be a coach. I need to help you become an entrepreneur. I need to support you on your time management, how you set up your clients and how you identify your avatars and how do you market to them and how do you charge and what is your pricing strategy? That's all business. That's what the how to start your financial coaching practice training is all about. It's all about the business side of what we do. Sorry, just taking a look at my phone, seeing what's coming through there. All right, what other questions might you have? We're about 6 minutes away from wrapping up. Any other questions? Let's see. Let me check the list. I didn't have anything coming through the phone. How do I start this journey when my time is already limited? We just talked about that. You've got to begin to train yourself as an entrepreneur. You know, you're working 9 to 5. You come home. If you have kids or a family or parents to take care of, that's got to happen, right? I know for me personally, I would work till 5, pick up my son by 6. I need to feed him, bathe him, get him in the bed by 9. By the time I'm done with him, it's 10. It's only 2 more hours before there's a new day. And guess what? Those 2 hours is the time that you take to work on your business. And even if it's 30 minutes of one task, 30 minutes of another task, train yourself to take those 30 minutes. It is subconscious training, but it is also the training required in being an entrepreneur. We don't work typical hours. And I find that as an entrepreneur that's full time in my practice, the best times for me to work is when everybody else is asleep. I don't have emails coming through. I don't have calls coming through. I can actually work and get things done without being interrupted. So that's usually between midnight and 5 a.m. Between midnight and 5 a.m., it is such a great work sweet spot. Now, obviously, you're like, okay, but when do you sleep? You sleep, you get a schedule according to what you can do. That's not going to be the entire journey, but you very well may start off with hours that look like that, putting in hours in the wee hours, burning that midnight oil just to get, to a place where you can say, I'm ready to launch. But again, that's where the training comes in. Idea to launch in 8 weeks. So your journey can very well begin with this training, get you in the right mindset, get you in the behavior of acting like an entrepreneur, putting energy towards building out this vision that's just in your head right now. You may have some things on paper, but you got to take it to the next level. You've got to identify some key business building blocks and get to working on that. And once they're done, they're done. Once you know who your client is, you know who your client is. You just refine it from there. Once you know what marketing systems you want to take on, great, let's do that. Build strategy and implement. Everything is about getting it out of the door, testing it, seeing if it's going to work. And that's the only way. That's the only way that you're going to know if it works or not. So, that's the beginning of the transition. The beginning of that transition is making the time to even think about your business. And if you're currently not doing that because you're like, oh, I'm already so busy, I don't have time. then you got to start there. Start by creating time to focus on your business. I paid a coach, two coaches, to be exact. I paid them, one coach, $1,000 to basically tell me I only had 24 hours in a day, and the things that I was doing, I couldn't do because I couldn't see that for myself. I was booking and overbooking and double booking and missing appointments and thinking I could do everything under the sun. No, you've got to really get time management down, but it's not impossible. It's probably the best thing for you, right? To know what you're doing every hour, to know the activities that you should focus on, the income generating activities versus the non income generating activities. All those kinds of things become very important um, to the journey. So I paid a consultant $1,000 to basically tell me, hey, Dominique, you're doing too much. There's only 24 hours in a day. You need to take some things off your plate. And then I paid another consultant $3,500 to tell me you should do business development every day for 90 minutes. Now, granted, there was more value added, but ultimately, that's what she was telling me. You've got to dedicate 90 minutes a day to getting your business up and running every day. You know what I'm saying? 90 minutes. So again, you may feel like you're already stretched thin, but start off with what you can manage. 30 minutes a day. Put 30 minutes a day towards your business. And the training is going to help you do that. We're going to meet at least once a week, for an hour. And in that dedicated hour, you're all about your financial coaching practice. So it's a good training. And then you can leave that training at the very least knowing I could do an hour a week. You know what I'm saying? How you going to start something and you won't give it time? So first, start with time, then look at your resources financially, see what might make sense in terms of how long your transition needs to take financially. But again, you don't want to wait till the numbers are perfectly aligned because readiness is relative. And especially if you got something pulling on your spirit telling you it's time to go, you might want to pay attention to that before, God comes in and say, didn't I tell you it was time to go? You didn't pay attention. Now I got to make it worse for you. And then he makes something happen to where you've got to really leave. It's not even it's non-negotiable at that point. So don't allow your numbers to deter you from getting started. Getting started is the best thing to do. It's a journey. You're going to be on it. You don't need to learn everything right, in one moment. You will learn as you evolve as an entrepreneur, but you've got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. All right, let me see. One more question. How do I find clients that pay me? We talked about that. What if I don't have a website? Oh, okay. That's actually a really good one. What if you don't have a website? That's fine. Because if you don't have a website, you could use your LinkedIn. Like there's other ways, right? LinkedIn is like basically having a free website. Make your LinkedIn your page where people can learn about your services, what you do. They could DM you. You could talk more about it. And guess what? Good old Word documents and flyers, they still work. Okay, I can send you a flyer or a brochure. Get a one pager. Get a brochure created in Word or in Google Docs, and use that as part of your marketing materials that outlines what your service is, your pricing, how to get in touch with you, and how to get started. You know what I'm saying? Until you get a website. You need a website. But until you get one, use that LinkedIn page and create a brochure or a flyer in Word and rock with it. Again, you have everything you need. You have everything you need. So that's time. That's time. I answered the questions that came in advance. Answer some of the questions that were live. Thank you for those who attended and, submitted questions. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in the training. Let me give you the link for you to check out more information about the upcoming live training. Here it is in the chat. You could check that out. And again, we're going to be getting started April 3rd. Every Saturday for 8 weeks. It's going to fly by like that. And you have lifetime access to this training. So you get to pop in and out whenever you need to. The next live cohort is going to be in November. You can feel free to come back and join that cohort as well. It's a community of financial coaches going independent, and we're leveraging our skill sets outside of our 9 to 5s, increasing our income, increasing our impact, and increasing our influence. And I'm just so honored and proud to be able to serve you, to give you the knowledge I've gotten on my journey to entrepreneurship, working full time in my practice. It is possible. There's people doing more with less. So don't think that you're not ready. You have everything you need, and I'm looking forward to working with you and supporting you and getting your financial coaching practice started. Thank you so much. And until we meet again, Dr. Dominique Reese. Peace.